Hi, my name is AJ Gerard from StrobeAdvice. Today, I'm going to showcase you two different beacon transmissions. Now, you may never have heard the term transmission used for this sort of application, as many manufacturers prefer to call them drives, like belt drive or worm drive or direct drive. But here at StrobeAdvice, I prefer to call them transmissions because that is essentially what they are. The two transmissions I have with us today is a belt drive transmission and a worm drive transmission. The IONNIC 400 series on the right has the belt drive transmission, and the Narva high optics on the left has the worm drive transmission. Each operate perfectly with either transmission. However, worm drive transmissions often relate to higher in-cabin noise, but they have a better life expectancy than a belt drive transmission, because belt drive transmissions will require a new belt when it wears down, whereas worm drive transmissions don't have that. However, belt drive transmissions are much more quieter than worm driven transmissions, but in this instance with these two products, the worm driven Narva high optics is actually quieter in cabin than the Vision Alert or IONNIC with the belt-driven transmission. Both transmissions are fully automatic. The belt-driven transmission in the IONNIC actually can be changed for 12-volt operation and 24-volt operation, whereas in the Narva high optics with the worm-driven transmission, it operates in either 12 or 24 volts. On the Vision Alert or IONNIC, it actually has a little, what I prefer to call a transmission control unit, which is technically this little metal gold spindle, and that has the belt running past it, and that connects down to the DC motor. So this is where you change the transmission voltage from 12 volt to 24 volt and vice versa. Maintenance costs for belt-driven transmission are extremely low. Some transmission belts only cost a couple of dollars to replace, although it is an expense, whereas worm-driven transmissions don't require maintenance. To change the voltage on a belt-driven transmission between 12 and 24 volts, all you need to do is move the transmission belt, from the bottom groove into the top groove. I will actually try and demonstrate this to you. Better if I just turn the reflector so it's easily to get to. So it's currently in 12 volt form, and if I move it up like this, it's now in 24 volt form. Yeah. The purpose for this I'm actually not quite sure about, but I think it spins the reflector faster than on 12 volt, but I could be wrong about that. That's my only speculation as to why they would offer a interchangeable voltage for the transmission. You can run the beacon on 12 volts with the transmission set up for 24 volts and vice versa, although it's not highly recommended that you do so. So I'll just move the belt back into 12 volt so I can use it on our test cars. Yep, so it just sort of slides into place. The motor that's connected to the transmission control unit provides the power that sends to the transmission control unit, and then that turns the transmission belt, which turns the reflector around the H1 globe. In the worm-driven transmission, a metal worm, as they're called, rotates around a grooved reflector base that's mounted on a spindle, and that then turns the reflector around the H1 bulb. I'll give you a close-up look of that. So essentially the transmission here is this gold worm here. That's technically the transmission. Whereas with a belt-driven transmission, the belt is the transmission rather than, say, a worm on a worm-driven. So if you can see that belt here, that's the transmission. So essentially, when that wears down, you're essentially replacing the transmission rather than another component. As I said, both have their benefits. Worm drive is usually louder in cabin than belt drive, although in this situation it's actually the other way around. So it really depends on which model you have and so forth. So that's about it that I can tell you today. So thanks for watching this video. Please feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and check us out on a new Flickr page at StrobeAdvice. And we will see you, and we will see you in our next video in the not too distant future.